ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜਸ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਫੇਰ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਅਮਰਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਓਬਾਮਾ ਦੀ ਤਰਫੋਂ AAPI ਦੇ ਕਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਅਪਾਇੰਟ ਹੋਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਔਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਟੈਲੀਵਿਜ਼ਨ ਅਪੀਅਰੈਂਸ ਹੈ ਐਂਡ ਆਮ ਰੀਅਲੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਊਡ ਟੂ ਸੇ ਕਿ ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਦ ਫਰਸਟ ਸਿੱਖ who's appointed to this position. So Amardeep, before we go forward with our questions, I know kuch callers wait kar rahe ne, asi ek call lene at least, and then we want to talk about the other things as well. Sat Sri Akal ji, aap kitho call kar rahe ho?
Hi, this is Mandeep calling from Sacramento, California.
Hi Mandeep, how are you today?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good. What would you like to talk to Mr. Amardeep Singh about today?
Well, I wanted to ask him what are some of the issues that he's already brought to the Commission's attention?
You know, that's a really good question because that is some of the things that's on our agenda to discuss with him. So do stay tuned because we are going to be talking about all the matters they have addressed and what are some of the things that will be addressed. Also, I do want to let all our viewers know, he just got appointed to this position last week. So we really didn't give him any breathing room yet, and we told him to join us on the show today. So as we progress, we will definitely keep you in tune with this.
Well, then my next question would change as to what kind of issues has he actually worked on the past 1 week to bring to the Commission's attention?
Okay, so you know what?
I know it's kind of like a short notice, but I'm sure there are things that he already has in his mind that he knows there are issues.
Absolutely. You know what then? Let's answer that. Let's just address that now rather than going into it later. So Mandeep, thank you so much for your call. We're going to discuss that now.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, also, as you answer that question, I do want to also ask you, you know, like she said, what are some of the issues you have addressed and what are some of the issues you're going to address? So basically, what is it tusi community waste ki kar rahe ho? In this capacity, what is the benefit with you on this commission? How is this going to help our community at large?
So there are two parts of the question.
Yes, there are.
What have I been doing and plan to do, and then how is it going to help the community in general? So in terms of, let's do the second question first,
Okay.
which is how the appointment's going to help the community.
Okay.
I think the way it's going to help the community is this. For the first time, we're really going to have a seat at the table on the inside with the highest elected officials in the federal government.
Yeah.
In order to raise our issues. So for example, last week was the first week meeting of the commission, and we were lucky enough to have Secretary Arnie Duncan, who is the head of the Federal Department of Education. He's in charge of the whole education system in the country.
Wow.
And I got a chance to raise with him very directly the issue of bullying of sick children in schools and how it affects the self-esteem of sick children, and raised with him what the federal government can do to address this issue of bullying against sick children in schools.
Okay.
And it was amazing for him to just very quickly say, I'd be happy to have you meet a woman named Ruslan Ali, who is the head of the Civil Rights Office of the Department of Education. She will help you address this issue.
Okay.
It's her job to address this issue. It's her job to make sure that nobody goes to school and is picked on the basis of their religion or their race or their gender. And literally, within a few hours, I received an email from one of his staffers, the secretary's staffer, saying, when would you like to meet the assistant secretary?
Oh, wow.
It's a big deal. It's otherwise, when we don't have these positions, like a group like a Sikh Coalition will literally write a letter. We'll wait for a response for a very long time, and then we'll, hopefully then slowly get access.
Yeah.
But this is a much quicker way to just raise the issues directly with the people who really are in charge. I mean, the cabinet secretary, somebody like Arnie Duncan, is, one level below the president. He's a member of his cabinet.
Exactly.
So in terms of how will this help the Sikh community, we'll have more of a seat at the table.
Okay.
At the highest levels. Now, will decisions change? Maybe, maybe not. But at least we'll have a chance to make our case in a way that we haven't before. So it is a big step in that way. I mean, the president has obviously thought about who should be on the commission, and his staff has thought about it, and they've begun to understand that the Sikh community this is my interpretation. Again, I don't get a lot of visibility into why they made the
Sure.
choice, but I believe that the president and his staff is saying the Sikh community is active, that there's so many Sikhs who are doing so many good things in this country, and we need to make sure that we hear a bit from the Sikh community more than we already have.
Great.
So I think that's the way it's going to help the Sikh community. In terms of issues I've already raised, I just covered one of them.
Exactly.
The bullying issue is something that
That's a
is
big
something
one.
we see at the Sikh Coalition all the time. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, just last night, I was at the gala, a festival of the South Asian Bar Association of New York. It's the Lawyers Association for South Asian lawyers in New York. And, two of the lawyers, and they're educated people, and they have access to justice because there's lawyers. Two of the lawyers separately came to me and said, one of the lawyers said, you know what, my son was picked on so much in school, and I didn't even say anything to him about, what are your issues. He just came to me and said, my son was really picked on in school. He was called Bin Laden. He was called terrorist by his friends. They were all laughing at him. They would call him this very frequently, and it took a long time for me to educate both the children who was doing it, their parents, and the school as to why this is something that they have to do something to prevent, and it affected his self-esteem.
Oh, wow.
And then another lawyer came to me and said, you know what, when I was applying to law school, I was a paralegal, and one of the things that was raised to me was, if I have you work with me in this law firm, when people see you in a court with a turban on, they might not take me as seriously as a lawyer, or they might have issues with me being their lawyer because I'm working with someone with a turban on their head.
Oh my God.
And this is what's happening in the quote-unquote educated circles.
Wow.
So, it's these types of anecdotes that I've been raising, very directly with the staff at the White House who are charged with making sure that our rights as a community are protected. But at the end of the day, in terms of my personal interest, to get to the question, obviously I've spent, my life's work in the last 9 years at the Sikh Coalition, working on civil rights issues, this critical issue of whether you can be a Sikh in the United States and enjoy your right to be a Sikh. That issue is my personal issue. That's my contribution, little contribution to the welfare of the community, and that's where I think I'm going to be able to lend the most expertise to the staff at the White House and the staff on the commission.
It's interesting that you say that, because the bullying issue ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, ਇਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. If you're telling me ਕਿ educated lawyers can make a comment like that to somebody, so it's not just a bullying issue for high schoolers or kindergarten or middle school kids. You're talking about bullying issues to adults in their everyday lives. So it all boils down to your civil rights then.
Absolutely, and again, to get to the caller's question, one of the issues that I raised very directly with the staff who was there at the commission last week was, I said, look, there is a horrible anti-Muslim climate in this country. The four largest Muslim countries in the world are actually countries that are in Asia. Indonesia, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh are the four largest Muslim countries in the world. So when there's an anti-Muslim climate, it's an Asian issue also. And the president needs to do something to address that anti-Muslim climate in the country. Otherwise, we're going to see kids bullied in schools. We're going to see comments like those lawyers faced about, clients not wanting to see a turban in the courtroom, and why should I hire you? So there has to be a way that the president and that the White House can do something to address bias out there in society, and there